There are times in our lives when we are left wondering about the silence of those we care about, those whose presence once filled our days with joy and warmth. We ask ourselves, why the silence? Why the distance? Why the withdrawal? And in that silence, there is a deep sense of confusion that strikes at the very core of our hearts. We wonder if the person we once knew so well still feels the same way. We search for answers, and often in the quiet we find nothing but more questions. But my dear friend, let me share with you this truth. Silence is not the absence of love, but a profound message in itself. Sometimes we mistake silence for rejection. We look at the stillness and we project onto it our fears and insecurities. We think, if he craves me, why is he silent? If she truly cares, why is she distant? We wrestle with the answer, trying to make sense of it all. But let me tell you something. There are reasons for silence that go far deeper than mere indifference. Silence, in many ways, speaks louder than words ever could. It can be a call to reflection, a moment of growth, or even a desperate cry for understanding. You see, the truth is this: when someone is silent, it does not necessarily mean they are uninterested or have stopped caring. Often, it means they are struggling with something deep inside. Perhaps they are fighting their own battles, wrestling with their own thoughts, or trying to reconcile their own desires with what they feel is right. In that moment of silence, they may be searching for clarity, trying to find peace within themselves. And sometimes the silence is their way of saying that they are not yet ready to give what is being asked of them, not because they don't crave you, but because they are not whole themselves. You have to understand that we are all imperfect. Every one of us carries burdens, regrets, and unresolved issues. We may appear strong on the outside, but inside we often face inner turmoil. And in that place of turmoil, the silence becomes a refuge. It is not a sign of coldness, it is a place of struggle, a struggle to find balance, to find peace. A man or woman may crave your presence, but in their silence, they are not rejecting you. They are fighting the battle within themselves to become the person they need to be, not only for you, but for themselves, and most importantly, for their own relationship with God. Silence may also be an opportunity to grow. There is a time for everything under heaven, and sometimes God allows silence to be a tool of transformation. In the quiet moments, we are often forced to look inward. The noise of life can drown out the still, small voice of God. But when everything else fades, when we are left alone with our thoughts and emotions, God speaks in ways we never imagined. The silence, painful as it may feel, becomes the perfect opportunity for growth, for deep reflection, for prayer, for understanding. It is in these moments that the soul is truly tested and refined. But this is the most powerful truth you must realize. If someone craves you, if their heart longs for you, but they are silent, it is not always about you. It's about their own internal journey. It's about their relationship with their own heart, their own faith, and their own struggles. And in that silence, you are being asked to trust. Trust that the love is still there, even when you can't hear it. Trust that God is at work in ways you may not see, guiding that person through their own process of healing and understanding. Let me remind you, God is a God of order, not confusion. He does not leave us in the dark. He does not hide His will from us. But He does allow us to experience times of waiting, times when answers don't come immediately, and times when the people we love seem distant. This silence is not punishment. It is an invitation, a call to a deeper trust in God's timing and His perfect plan. The Bible tells us that God works all things together for the good of those who love Him. Romans 8:28. That means, my friend, even in the silence, God is working. Working in you. If you find yourself frustrated in this silence, I urge you to remember that this time is not wasted. It is not wasted because in the silence you are learning patience. You are learning the art of surrender. You are learning to trust not in the promises of man, but in the promises of a faithful God. When we are faced with the silence of others, we often feel compelled to fill that silence with our own words, our own actions, and our own desires. But I tell you, sometimes the best thing we can do in the face of silence is to remain still, to wait, to trust. Trust that God is working in the hearts of those around you. Trust that He is doing a mighty work in the one who is silent. And trust that in His perfect time, the silence will break. The hearts will be open, the words will flow, and the cravings will be revealed. Not just the craving for your presence, but the craving for truth, for peace, and for reconciliation. The truth will shock you, yes. It will shock you because in your human understanding, you may never have seen silence as a form of love, as a form of growth, or as a means of healing. But my friend, God's ways are not our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. Isaiah 55:8. When we are silent, He is not silent. When we wait, He is working. When we are still, He is moving in the hearts of those around us, shaping them, molding them, and bringing about His divine purposes. So I encourage you today, do not despair in the silence. Do not see it as the end. See it as a beginning, an invitation to trust, to grow, to wait upon the Lord. In the silence, there is something beautiful being forged that will not only change your life, but also change the lives of those you love. The truth, my friend, is that silence often speaks volumes, and in God's timing, He will reveal all things. He will bring clarity to the confusion, peace to the turmoil, and joy to the waiting. Wait upon the Lord, and He will renew your strength. He will renew your heart. And in time, He will make all things clear. Silence from someone you care about does not necessarily mean they no longer crave you or care for you. It can indicate internal struggles, personal battles, or a need for self-reflection. Silence is often a tool of transformation. It forces individuals to reflect, grow, and reconcile their desires with their inner truths. It may also be a time for deepening one's relationship with God. God's timing is perfect. Even in moments of silence, God is working in both individuals involved, guiding their hearts and circumstances towards His greater plan. The silence should not be filled with frustration, but rather patience and trust. It teaches the value of waiting, surrendering to God's plan, and trusting that He is at work in ways we may not understand. While silence may be confusing, it's not wasted. God uses these quiet moments to bring about personal and spiritual growth, working in ways beyond our comprehension to shape the hearts and minds of those involved. Silence, in many cases, can be mistaken for rejection, but it is far more complex than that. When someone pulls away or chooses not to speak, our immediate reaction is often to assume it's because they no longer care. We see their absence, their quietness, and we start to fill it with our own fears and doubts. However, silence does not always reflect disinterest or abandonment. It can be a reflection of a person wrestling with their own struggles, uncertainties, or emotions that they are not yet ready to share, it is not uncommon for people to crave connection yet still find themselves caught in the tension of needing space to process, heal, or figure things out on their own. The silence could be a sign that the person needs time to reflect on themselves, to face internal challenges, or to seek clarity before moving forward in a relationship or commitment. It is essential not to immediately assume that silence means rejection, because often it signifies a deeper need for understanding, growth, or simply the process of working through one's own struggles. In such moments, patience and compassion can be far more valuable than pressing for answers, as the person may be searching for their own resolution in the quiet. Silence can serve as a powerful catalyst for personal growth, though it may feel uncomfortable or unnerving at first. In the stillness, we are forced to confront ourselves, our fears, our desires, and the parts of our lives we may have been avoiding. When there's no external noise or distraction, we are left with our inner thoughts, and it is in these moments that we often experience the deepest revelations. Silence gives us space to reflect on our choices, our actions, and even our character. Without the noise of the world, we begin to hear what is truly on our hearts, what we truly need to change, and where we might need to grow. This time of quiet can lead to breakthroughs in self-awareness. We can examine areas of our lives that need healing, ask ourselves difficult questions, and pray for direction. Often, personal growth requires stepping away from the noise of daily life to seek clarity and understanding. In silence, we learn to be more patient, more present, and more attuned to the voice of God. This space allows us to grow in wisdom, maturity, and grace, preparing us to move forward with greater clarity and a deeper sense of purpose. Trusting in God's timing means recognizing that He is never early, never late. He is always right on time. In moments of silence, when we feel the weight of uncertainty or impatience, we must remember that God's plans unfold according to His perfect schedule, not ours. It is easy to get frustrated when things don't happen as quickly as we'd like, or when we're left waiting for answers that seem to never come. But trusting in His timing is about surrendering control and acknowledging that His wisdom far surpasses our understanding. We may not always understand why we are in a season of waiting or why someone we care about is silent. But God is working behind the scenes in ways we can't see. When we trust His timing, we release the burden of trying to force things to happen on our own. We allow God to prepare us for what's ahead, whether that's growth in patience, developing a deeper trust, or refining our hearts. In the waiting, God is not idle. He is at work, preparing both us and the circumstances in ways that will lead to something far greater than we could have planned ourselves. Trusting in God's timing gives us peace, even when everything seems still or uncertain. Silence can often feel like a test of our patience, especially when we are eager for answers or clarity. In these moments, we may find ourselves tempted to fill the quiet with our own anxieties or frustrations. But silence, in reality, is an invitation to practice surrender, letting go of our need to control, fix, or hurry things along. When faced with the unknown, surrendering in silence doesn't mean giving up, but rather submitting to the process of waiting and allowing God to work on His terms. It means releasing our tight grip on the outcome and resting in the assurance that God is moving even when we don't see it. In the absence of immediate answers, we are invited to trust God's wisdom, to yield our will to His, and to recognize that the silence is part of His shaping and refining process. It is in these quiet, patient moments that our character is tested and our faith is deepened. We learn that peace is found not in rushing ahead, but in waiting with hope and surrendering to God's perfect plan. In times of silence, it's easy to assume that nothing is happening, that God has turned away or is absent. But the truth is, God often works most powerfully when the noise fades and everything goes still. Silence is not emptiness. It is a canvas on which God paints His work. In the quiet, He is moving in ways that are beyond our understanding, shaping hearts, molding circumstances, and preparing the perfect moment for His will to be revealed. While we wait, God is at work, even when we cannot see the changes taking place. In the silence, we are forced to rely not on our own strength or ability to control things, but on God's infinite wisdom and timing. This is where true trust is cultivated. Just as God worked in the stillness of creation, forming the world from nothing, He is creating something beautiful in our lives, even when we can't perceive it. The silence is a place where growth happens, spiritually, emotionally. God's silence does not mean inactivity. Rather, it's a season where He is preparing us for what's ahead, refining our hearts and deepening our trust in His perfect plan.